Nation and World Briefing: Trump is fined $10,000 over a comment he made outside court in his New York civil fraud trial. New York: Donald Trump was abruptly called to the witness stand and then fined $10,000 on Wednesday after the judge in his civil fraud trial said the former president had violated a gag order. It was the second time in less than a week that Trump was penalized for his out-of-court comments. Before imposing the latest fine, Judge Arthur Engoron summoned Trump from the defense table to testify about his comment to reporters hours earlier about a person who's very partisan sitting alongside the judge. Engoron had already ordered all participants in the trial not to comment publicly about his staff. That restriction from October 3 followed a Trump social media post that maligned the judge's principal law clerk, who sits next to him. Trump and his lawyers insisted that his comment Wednesday was not about the clerk. They said he was referring to Michael Cohen, a former Trump attorney who had been testifying. Engoron said Trump's claim was not credible, noting that he sat closer to the clerk than to Cohen. The idea that the statement would refer to the witness, Engoron said, doesn't make any sense to me. 5 days earlier, Trump had been fined $5,000 after Engoron learned that the offending social media post from early October had lingered on Trump's campaign website for weeks after being taken down, on the judge's orders, from Trump's Truth social media platform. Then, on Wednesday, the Republican presidential frontrunner complained in a courthouse hallway that Engoron, a Democrat, is a very partisan judge, with a person who's very partisan sitting alongside of him, perhaps even much more partisan than he is. Under oath on the witness stand, Trump told the judge that the remark was aimed at you and Cohen. But Trump did not conceal his frustration with the clerk. I think she's very biased against us. I think we've made that clear, Trump said during his roughly 2 minutes on the stand. 3 of Trump's lawyers objected to the $10,000 fine, and they reiterated Trump's claim that the clerk was partial. Not long after he was fined and moments after one of his lawyers finished questioning Cohen, Trump stood up and walked out of the courtroom, trailed by his son Eric. Donald Trump has attended the trial voluntarily, and he can leave whenever he likes. The episodes raise questions about whether Trump can abide by court directives that are aimed at reining in his rhetoric while respecting his free speech rights as he campaigns to return to the White House. Last week in Washington, the judge in Trump's federal election interference criminal case imposed a gag order barring public statements targeting prosecutors, court staff and potential witnesses. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan's order came after prosecutors raised concerns that Trump's remarks could inspire his supporters to threaten or harass his targets. Chutkan temporarily lifted the order Friday so she could consider a defense request to pause the restrictions while Trump appeals it. Hurricane Otis, now a catastrophic Category 5 storm off Mexico's Pacific coast nearing Acapulco, Mexico. Residents of Mexico's once glamorous port of Acapulco and surrounding coastal towns braced for the arrival of the potentially catastrophic Hurricane Otis, a rapidly intensifying Category 5 hurricane that stirred memories of a 1997 storm that killed dozens of people. A nightmare scenario is unfolding for southern Mexico this evening with rapidly intensifying Otis approaching the coastline, a National Hurricane Center forecaster said. Late Tuesday, Hurricane Otis strengthened from a tropical storm to a dangerous Category 5 hurricane in 12 hours Tuesday as it approached Mexico's southern Pacific coast. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said Otis had maximum sustained winds of 160 miles per hour late Tuesday evening and was expected to make landfall early Wednesday near Acapulco. It was centered about 55 miles south-southeast of Acapulco and moving north-northwest at 9 miles per hour. Acapulco is a city of more than 1 million people at the foot of steep mountains. Luxury homes and slums alike cover the city's hillsides with views of the glistening Pacific. Time equals 400 ms. greater than while it drew Hollywood stars in its heyday for its nightlife, sport fishing and cliff diving shows. Acapulco has in more recent years fallen victim to competing organized crime groups that sank the city into violence, driving many international tourists to the Caribbean waters of Cancun and the Riviera Maya or hippie beaches farther down the Pacific coast in Oaxaca. A hurricane warning was in effect from Punta Maldonado to Zihuatanejo. A hurricane watch was in effect from Lagunas de Chacagua to Punta Maldonado. Otis was forecast to remain a Category 5 hurricane through landfall, but rapid weakening is then forecast due to the higher terrain of Mexico. Otis will likely dissipate over southern Mexico on Wednesday night. This is an extremely serious situation for the Acapulco metropolitan area, with the core of the destructive hurricane likely to come near or over that large city early on Wednesday, the Weather Service said. There are no hurricanes on record even close to this intensity for this part of Mexico. In Acapulco, people hurried home as rain began to pelt the resort and winds picked up, driving tourists from the beach. The Guerrero state government said it was preparing 396 shelters in anticipation of families being driven from their homes by wind damage or surging waters. "We're on maximum alert," Acapulco Mayor Abelina Lopez said Tuesday night as she urged residents to hunker down at home or move to the city's shelters. She said Otis could be more devastating than Hurricane Pauline that hit Acapulco in 1997, destroying swaths of the city and killing more than 200 people. Hundreds of others were injured in flooding and mudslides. Nashville police chief's son, wanted in the shooting of 2 officers, found dead after car chase. Nashville, 10. The estranged son of Nashville's police chief, who was wanted in the shooting of 2 police officers, was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound after leading police on a chase in a stolen car, authorities said. Nashville Police Chief John Drake issued a statement on Wednesday thanking officers for working to locate his son after John Drake Jr., 38, was accused of shooting and wounding 2 officers in nearby Laverne on Saturday. Time equals 400 ms. Greater than. It was my prayer that no harm would come to him or anyone else, the elder Drake said. I am heartbroken and saddened by the outcome. I appreciate the condolences and kind words of support as my family and I privately mourn our loss, Metro Nashville Police spokesman Don Aaron said in a news conference on Tuesday night that the younger Drake had stolen a car at gunpoint from a home southeast of downtown around 6 p.m. Drake asked a man and woman in front of a home for a ride, and when they were unable or unwilling to give him a ride, he pulled out a gun and demanded the car in the driveway, Aaron said. Officers spotted the car a short time later and followed it to the Edgehill area south of downtown, where it crashed. Drake fled to a shed behind a home, and when officers surrounded the area, a gunshot was heard, Aaron said. Officers found Drake dead with a gunshot wound that was apparently self-inflicted, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said in a statement posted on social media. TBI will investigate Drake's death at District Attorney Glenn Funk's request, and a full autopsy will be performed as a part of the investigation, the agency said. Drake, who had been wanted on 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder, was the son of Metro Nashville Police Department Chief John Drake. The chief issued a statement Saturday confirming his son was the suspect in the shooting. He said his son has not been part of his life for some time. The search began on Saturday when officers Ashley Bolijak and Gregory Kern were investigating a stolen vehicle outside the Dollar General store in Laverne, a city about 20 miles, 32 kilometers, southeast of Nashville. They struggled with the suspect, who pulled a handgun and shot them, said Laverne Police Chief Christopher Mose. Both officers were treated and released from Vanderbilt University Medical Center. In a statement posted on social media, Mose thanked all the officers involved in Tuesday night's pursuit for their steadfastness and dedication to seeing this case through, and said their prayers are with Chief Drake and his family. Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell released a statement calling the younger Drake's death a tragic end. Our heart goes out to Chief Drake and his family at this difficult time, he said. Mike Johnson, staunch conservative from Louisiana, elected House Speaker Washington, Republicans unanimously elected Representative Mike Johnson as House Speaker on Wednesday, eagerly elevating a deeply conservative but lesser-known leader to the major seat of U.S. power. And ending for now the weeks of political chaos in their majority. Johnson, 51, of Louisiana, swept through on the first ballot with support from all Republicans anxious to put the past weeks of tumult behind and get on with the business of governing. He was quickly sworn into office, second in line to the presidency. Time equals 400 ms. Greater than. The People's House is back in business, Johnson declared after taking the gavel. A lower-ranked member of the House GOP leadership team, Johnson emerged as the 4th Republican nominee in what had become an almost absurd cycle of political infighting since Kevin McCarthy's ouster as GOP factions jockeyed for power. While not the party's top choice for the gavel, the deeply religious and even-keeled Johnson has few foes and an important GOP backer, Donald Trump. I think he's gonna be a fantastic speaker, Trump said Wednesday at the New York courthouse where the former president, who is now the Republican frontrunner for president in 2024, is on trial over a lawsuit alleging business fraud. 3 weeks on without a House Speaker, the Republicans have been wasting their majority status, a maddening embarrassment to some, democracy in action to others, but not at all how the House is expected to function. President Joe Biden telephoned his congratulations and said in a statement that it's time for all of us to act responsibly, with challenges ahead to fund the government and provide aid for Ukraine and Israel. We need to move swiftly, the president said. In the House, far-right members had refused to accept a more traditional speaker, and moderate conservatives didn't want a hardliner. While Johnson had no opponents during a private party roll call late Tuesday, some 24 Republicans did not vote, more than enough to sink his nomination. But when GOP conference chair Representative Elise Stefanik rose to introduce Johnson's name Wednesday as their nominee, Republicans jumped to their feet for a standing ovation. House Republicans and Speaker Mike Johnson will never give up, she said. Democrats again nominated their leader Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York, criticizing Johnson as an architect of Trump's legal effort to overturn the 2020 presidential election he lost to Democrat Biden. With Republicans controlling the House only 221 to 212 over Democrats, Johnson could afford just a few detractors to win the gavel. He won 220 to 209, with a few absences. Jeffries said House Democrats will find common ground, work with Republicans whenever possible for the good of the country. Lawmakers quickly reconvened to get on with the business of governing, considering a resolution saying the House stands with Israel and condemns Hamas' brutal war. Next, they plan to turn to a stalled government funding bill. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than Johnson's rise comes after a tumultuous month, capped by a head-spinning Tuesday that within a span of a few hours saw one candidate, Representative Tom Emmer, the GOP whip, nominated and then quickly withdraw when it became clear he would be the third candidate unable to secure enough support from GOP colleagues after Trump bashed his nomination. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than attention quickly turned to Johnson. A lawyer specializing in constitutional issues, Johnson had rallied Republicans around Trump's legal effort to overturn the 2020 election results. Elevating Johnson to Speaker gives Louisiana two high-ranking GOP leaders, putting him above Scalise. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than affable and well-liked, colleagues swiftly started giving Johnson their support. In no time, his name replaced McCarthy's on the sign outside the Speaker's office in the Capitol. The congressman, who drew on his Christian beliefs, said to the American people watching, "Our mission here is to serve you well and to restore the people's faith in this House." Newsletter success. An email has been sent to with a link to confirm list sign-up. Error. There was an error processing your request. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than news alerts and top stories, the latest breaking news, plus our top stories each week. The daily are top headlines each morning, 7 days a week, as well as each weekday afternoon. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than the Sports Insider. Get our top sports stories of the week each Sunday morning. You must select at least one email list. Please enter a valid email address. Sign up, manage your lists.